Throughout our community, there are many people who inspire us, and now is your chance to honor them. Today we have with us Mr. Mosby and Mrs. Dixon to tell us about their story, but first let's find out what the Inspiration Has a Name campaign is.
Inspiration has a name, and we want to know who inspires you. As we celebrate Black History Month, help us to honor those that inspired you with their strength, courage, integrity, and endurance. We want to hear about the teachers, the nurses, the soldiers, and the shopkeepers, the people who stood up for what was right and who stood out in your life. Inspiration has a name. Tell us about your inspiration at inspirationhasaname.com.
So thank you guys so much for joining us today. And Mr. Mosby, I'll start with you. You were actually drafted into the Army when it was still segregated. What was that like?
Yeah, that was a challenge, all right. And when I went in initially, I didn't know what to expect, and as soon as I got there, I found a segregated army, and so I dealt with that and went on to move on. And the key was to do the best with what I had, and so I always believe in applying myself to the top. So I went from there to different leaders school and ended up in OCS, and so the time I got in to the time I went overseas, I was a second lieutenant, with the platoon leader, as a platoon leader, and that's where I was involved in a firefight that resulted in me receiving a Silver Star. From there, I went on and became a company commander. This is condensing it a lot, and but I used the initial training, to the utmost, and got the most out of it. What I believe is important, or still believe that it's always important to do the very best that you can with what you have, in spite of the difficulties that I met initially. I went on. So from there I went on to, after being discharged from the service, I went on into business for myself, and that lasted 50 years. And so
it's just a true testament to, hard work really does pay off. I mean, you went from private to commanding your whole, command, and that's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, it's good. In spite of the fact that there was this concept that black people couldn't be leaders, and most of the men, 90% of them were white in my company, and so that was never a problem. We just had a job to do, and we did it well.
Well, there you go. And Miss Dixon, you've had a lot of jobs in your career. Which one meant the most to you?
I think my counseling of students was the most rewarding thing that I have ever done. And I think it goes back to the inspiration that I received from my grandfather when I was very young. He always said that I would grow up to be a teacher, and I would teach in a one-room school. Of course, I shied away from that, and I decided, well, I do not want to teach in a one-room school. So I pursued a career in science because I love lab work. But in the lab, you do not interact with people, and you do not have the opportunity to change lives. When I was a senior in high school, I was one of the top students in my class, and for my graduation speech, my coach inspired me to talk about education being the key to better citizenship. And I've always carried that with me. So I had an opportunity to work with students and guide them in their quest for college admissions, as well as going into other training areas.
And it's great to see, your inspirations coming through you to inspire others. So let's get that information out there about how people can write about who's inspired them. The Inspiration Has a Name campaign is in honor of Black History Month. This time you can nominate people between now and February 28th. You can go online to facebook.com/inspirationhasaname, or you can also go online to inspirationhasaname.com.